All right, welcome to week 2, first session. And we're going to talk about the designer of marriage, the OG, the GOD of marriage. And it seems kind of very fundamental, almost like, do we really need to cover? I know God made marriage sort of a thing, but there's some neat things in here that you're going to learn about in the session that are fun, that are interesting, and that are relevant and useful to you as a couple. So when we talk about marriage, the interesting thing about marriage is when it was designed. And there's not a lot of things we can go back to in the Bible that were designed before the fall, before the apple. But God designed marriage actually before the fall. So it's very interesting that he designed these two people were supposed to be together for life. And yet then sin happened and we're still supposed to stay married. Right. And that's why we're here, right? We're trying to figure out how to stay married in a fruitful way, despite the fact that we're two sinful, imperfect people. And so by understanding this, it helps us build the foundation for the other topics we're going to cover over the rest of this week and the coming weeks. And so one of the interesting things about God's design of marriage is, and this is relevant to a lot of areas in our life, is that he understands our needs even more than we do. So we have to take some of the things that will make rational sense and logical sense, and we'll roll with them. And some of them we might scratch our heads and go, I don't quite understand this, but we walk in faith, taking that and using it in our marriage. And one of the things that I experienced in my first marriage that's related to this topic is, this concept of being equally yoked. And so the Bible talks about being equally yoked, and it's using this concept of two animals pulling, for agricultural purposes, pulling a plow. And so a lot of times I would interpret that as being, okay, we just need to be the same species and we're good to go. But actually this topic of being equally yoked is more so than the same species. It's that you have the same behaviors and mannerisms, that you pull with the same level of effort, that you have the same characteristics, so that you don't go in circles, right? If one animal is pulling harder than the other, then we go in circles. And so, in my first marriage, I picked someone who I thought was nice, I got along with, and I was very clear about my faith. And I accepted their faith as, well, I go to church on the holidays. And the end result is that the character there, the moral compass was different. And sadly, despite trying, I was married 21 years. After repeated infidelities, and this isn't to talk badly about my ex, but I couldn't continue. I tried everything possible. I wanted to keep my family together. I wanted to stay committed to what God called me to do as a husband, and that is I'm married for life. And so after the covenant was broken a number of times and the divorce, I reflected on that and I said, well, for one, I reaped what I sowed there, because I picked someone who didn't have the core faith that I did. Not that makes me better. I'm only better because of who I believe in and the relationship with whom I have it. So what was my contribution to the affairs? And we're going to talk more about that, but that gets into love and cherishing. And I recognize in my own life in reflection that there were things that I didn't do that, didn't help the cause, right? That made my ex perhaps feel uncherished or unloved. And that's the interesting thing, right? So you're sitting there and maybe after going through the SYMBIS assessment, you're looking at the qualities and characteristics of your future spouse. Maybe you have some doubts, I don't know, or you have questions. But here's the beautiful and amazing thing about God. When we have God as the architect of our marriage, is it's a little bit like one of your favorite reality shows, cooking show. Do you remember that cooking show where they give the chefs, they say, here's some squid, some chocolate, and raisins. Cook us something that tastes delicious. And you're like, gross. That's not possible. But what God does, if we love God and we love our spouse, God is the chef. He takes our qualities and he makes us into something beautiful if we'll trust the chef in our lives. And so that's what I think is super amazing and cool about this walk, this journey with God, with our spouse. Is he will make it right if we trust him and follow the plans and the framework he gives us. And so marriage, it's going to give us things. There's a lot of amazing things that are lying for wait in a thriving marriage, but it also requires things from us. Sometimes more than we expect. If you're engaged and you haven't had these experiences, it's going to require more than you're capable of giving, frankly. And we're going to talk about how we deal with that deficiency, because the cool thing is we have an unlimited pool to pull from. So it's going to require sacrifice. Two becoming one, the interesting part is like we're individuals. I get to, before I'm married, how long do I want to sleep? What do I want to eat for dinner? What do I want to do with my free time? Those are all my choices. When I get married, I'm going to give up some of those things. So we're going to talk about that more in submission and sacrifice days. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, And the neat thing about marriage and our imperfection, he designed it. So we designed it before the fall. We're together after the fall, imperfect people. But God uses that, again, in amazing and fun ways, and not always fun, but amazing ways, and helping us grow and become more like him. And the neat thing is when he does that work in our hearts and our minds, is that we just become better people to everyone in our lives, right? To our friends and our family and our work environment. And God can use us as a light. Our light goes brighter. And if we're a mirror reflecting Christ, that mirror gets a little shinier, right? And people can see God through us. And that's what I love. About that. I don't always love the work he's doing at the moment, but I love the outcome. And so what's behind the hard work is its goodness.
Right.
So many gifts, the promises that God gives us, so much of those gifts are actually contingent on what we do. Our faith is by grace, but the blessings come from the things we do. And honoring and loving our wife, honoring and loving our husband, that's what's behind it, all these gifts. So if we're Christians and we love God and we're married, why do some marriages fail? Is a question. And some of it's training, preparation, and all that. But other reasons is that our culture provides a different definition of what marriage is. There's many folks that are married and they get married because I like how you make me feel. I like what you give me. And that's very different than the biblical design of marriage.
Or that I like you because you're hot.
Cut. No, but that's not entirely a ridiculous statement, because sometimes we're getting married to someone because we think they're very attractive, and we have sexual aspirations with that person. But these are not meaningful, fulfilling elements, and they're not sustainable things. If I'm going to spend the rest of my life for what you can do for me, what happens when they stop doing that for you? What happens when she gets older and she's less hot? Right? These are the things. This is the biblical flip. The world offers you something that's contingent on behavior and you giving me something in return that's transactional. The Bible offers us something that is rooted in God, that's unbreakable, that we are committed no matter what you do, no matter how many bad days in a row you have. I'm committed to loving you no matter what. That is the difference. It's very different. And God gives us the power and the tools, and we're going to walk through that with you. We're going to arm you with all that. So you're going to crush it in your marriage in a positive way, not in a, you know what I'm saying. So let's wrap up and get you excited to walk into this first section. So there's an activity at the end. We think you're going to enjoy it. It's a vision board. And if you're a guy, you're like, a vision board? Are we going to have to cut and paste from a magazine? No, you don't have to do that. But what you do want to do is have fun with it. What does the future of your marriage look like? How many kids are you going to have? Do you want to live in a big house, or do you want a camper van? Do you want to go up the coast? Is money more important? Is experience more important? Figuring those things out. Who did God make you to be? And what is it that you look for in the future? It's a fun exercise to go through. And you're going to learn some of the other parts of marriage. Compromise. It might be a camper van in the summer and the white picket fence in the winter. I don't know. But have fun with that. Enjoy it. And we'll see you tomorrow.